Hey guys, it's Tahira, and today I'm doing my October wrap up. Now, I literally know that the video before my last one was also a wrap up, but I unexpectedly got into a really big reading slump in the month of October, so I only ended up reading like 4 books, which is like not that much less than what I usually read, but I was just not in the reading mood at all for like majority of the month, so I didn't read as much as I wanted to. And most of the books that I'm talking about today, I have also vlogged my experience reading them in my last video, which is my fall reading vlog, so I linked that down below if you want to hear like more of my real-time thoughts, I guess, for those books. But without further ado, I'll be talking about the 4 books. Now, as far as stats, I read actually a pretty even amount of genres. So I read 2 thrillers and 2 fantasy/fantasy romance books. And the page total for all 4 of these books ended up being 1,723 pages. So not too bad in terms of pages, I guess. But yeah, I'll be talking about these books now. The very first book that I read in the month of October was Fantasma by Kaylee Smith. This is like the newest fantasy romance book that I've been seeing going around the book community. And I first heard about this because Sarah from Sarah Caroli read it in a reading vlog, and the plot and the vibes of it like immediately captured my attention. I talk more about this in my reading vlog, but I just could not stop thinking about it the minute that she started talking about the book, and the minute I kind of saw like what it was about in the cover and everything. That book really had a hold on me, and I just could not stop thinking about it. And honestly, I still can't really stop thinking about it. So I ended up giving this like 4.5 stars, but I don't know if I should go higher, just because like this book has for some reason stuck with me in a way that no other book has. So I don't know what that means for the rating, but for now I'm keeping it like a 4.5, because that feels right to me with like the amount of things that I like and the amount of things that I don't like. So this book follows 2 sisters, Ophelia and Genevieve, and they're living in New Orleans in this world where there's this like dark, deadly competition carnival type thing called Fantasma that is kind of like traveling around, like I don't know if it's the world or the continent or whatever, but Fantasma is now in New Orleans, and their mother has just died, and Ophelia finds out that there was a lot of debt related to her house that she's living in, and that her mother owed a lot of money to the bank. And Genevieve, her sister, sort of says that she will but then Ophelia thinks that she is going to Fantasma in order to try to fix the debt that their mother had with their house. And Fantasma is it's run by devils, and at the end the winner gets like a wish, so they can wish for anything in the world and they will get it. So I guess like Ophelia thought that Genevieve would sort of use that as a way to like clear their debt and clear their names with the bank. So she follows Genevieve to this competition, and then there she meets this man named Blackwell, and they sort of have their own like motives for being in this competition, and they both want different things, so they kind of start working together to help each other out. So the way the game works also is that there's 9 trials relating to the 9 circles of hell. Each are like controlled and operated by a different devil, and the book kind of follows Ophelia. She's going through these 9 trials with the help of Blackwell, who is this like phantom ghost person. We kind of find more about him and his origins in the book. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. As I said, I was obsessed with the book and the plot, and honestly I really loved the writing. As soon as it started, it immediately hooked me, to be honest, and I thought that the atmosphere was very like dark, gothic, and very much matching the vibes of what the book was, and I guess like the New Orleans atmosphere with the dark like devil competition vibes. Like I really enjoyed that aspect of it. My gripes with the book is that it felt a little bit slow in the middle, because there are 9 trials, which is honestly a lot. So after a while the trials kind of did feel like they got a little bit repetitive because of just how many there were. So I felt like if it was just cut down a little bit, I think it would have benefited the story. And I had also had a little bit of an issue with how confined the setting was, because when the competitors go, they can only stay on like 1 floor for 7 of the 9 trials, which is like the floor where everyone in their group, I guess, has their own rooms, and there's like the dining room where they eat and start their trials. So for majority of the book, we were kind of just on this 1 floor, and a little bit parts of the library, but that was like on the same floor. I feel like having so much of a 500-page book on like 1 floor, where like you're basically just in like 3 different rooms max was really, really repetitive as well. And I feel like it would have been more interesting to sort of explore more of the manor, because they were in this like really dark gothic manor, and I feel like it would have been so interesting if we got to explore that a little bit more and used it to our advantage. But that didn't really end up happening, and I don't know, I wish that it was just not just like 1 floor and like 2 rooms, and I just got a little bit bored because of that. But the characters and the relationship between Ophelia and Blackwell is just chef's kiss, because obviously like they start out with like bargains and they're trying to they're basically there for themselves. They end up like sparking this romantic connection, and I really, really loved it. Like, I don't know, I just really like their banter and how they fit together and how they interact, and that was really fun to read. I am looking forward to the sequel, which I think follows her sister, and she goes like to Italy, I believe, or something. So like I'm kind of sad that we won't be following Ophelia and Blackwell, but I hope that we get a little bit of them, because I just really want to see them in the second book. So overall, I did have like a couple gripes with this book, but overall, like in my head, I have such positive like emotions associated with this book, and I'm really, really glad that I decided to go with my gut and pick it up. Then I read a thriller, because I feel like month of October and the spooky fall season just goes with thrillers, and that is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. This book follows 2 characters. We have Alex and Josie. Josie is this like woman who lives with her husband, and she's kind of contemplating her life and she wants to make a change. And then one day on her 40th birthday, she goes to eat at this restaurant that she normally would never go to, and she meets Alex there, who is also celebrating her birthday, the same birthday, 40th birthday, and they were born in the same hospital. And Alex has a podcast, so Josie kind of goes to Alex and proposes the idea that Alex interviews Josie for her podcast, because Josie supposedly has this like really interesting story that she wants to tell, and she, according to herself, is on the brink of like making a big change in her life. So Alex reluctantly starts interviewing Josie, and she kind of starts realizing that there is a lot more to her story than she realized, and that there is some sinister undertones happening. This one, I just generally thought it was just an okay book, and my biggest like honestly letdown with this book is that it was honestly really boring. Like, I feel like it started off really promising, the premise was interesting, but overall I feel like it wasn't really like an explosive thriller like I wanted it to be. I really like my thrillers to be like really shocking and have a lot of plot twists that I would never see coming, but this one was more of a build-up of like uneasiness and tension rather than just like a whodunit sort of situation or something like that, because I feel like that's the kind of stuff I like, is like who did it, like what really happened. And this one was just more of someone that we know has sinister like undertones to her, and someone that we know is not exactly who she says she is, and just kind of following her as we're like unraveling more and more about her throughout the book. So yeah, this just wasn't the type of thriller that I normally enjoy. And also they had like a bunch of like, this podcast and this book got turned into a Netflix series, and they had like random episodes with transcripts of people talking in the podcast and then visuals, and I don't know, it just didn't work for me. Like that writing style just didn't work for me, and it kind of brought me out of the story a little bit. But yeah, overall it was just kind of boring. I had no problem putting the book down, which is like, I feel like I never want that in a thriller. Like when I put a book down, usually I'm like, I want to pick it back up to figure out what's gonna happen next, but I never really got that feeling with this book. So yeah, it was just kind of honestly a super middle of the road book for me. Then I read another thriller, but that one was also a flop, and that is The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. This one I ended up giving 2 stars, and honestly I was pretty disappointed by this one. This one follows a woman named Sydney, I believe, and she is sort of at her end with the dating game. She's been dating a lot of people, and she really just wants to find the perfect person for her. She ends up meeting this creepy guy, I guess, and then after that she meets like supposedly this like perfect person who seems perfect, and he's amazing, but obviously he's probably not as gorgeous and amazing as he looks to be. And also, while this is all happening, one of Sydney's friends that lives in her apartment is found dead, and so they kind of have to figure out like what happened to her and who did it. And then we have this is a dual timeline story, so then we have another perspective, which is Tom, who is from the past, and it's following him in high school during a time when there's also similar like murders happening in his like neighborhood, I guess. The past was definitely more interesting than the present. I feel like the present, like the main character was really dumb. I feel like she never really made smart decisions, and it just didn't, it wasn't really a fun story to follow because of that. But I will say the past, like I did enjoy it, and I feel like it was definitely more fleshed out than I felt like the present was. And my ending, like I did not like the ending at all. I actually hated it so much. It was so like comically villainous, where it's like, you know when like a villain has a big monologue and they're like almost acting absurd? It was kind of like that, and honestly it wasn't really super shocking either. I feel like it was pretty predictable. In Frida McFadden fashion, she did throw in a couple red herrings in there, obviously, but I feel like the actual reveal was just not shocking at all. I just wasn't shocked like I usually am with Frida McFadden books, and I feel like she has a capability of making like a really twisty ending, but I don't know, it just fell flat for me for this one. I know it did work for a lot of people based on the reviews, but for me it just didn't. And it was also boring, so 2 stars. And the last book that I actually finished in November, like the first or second day, but I'm gonna include it because I read most of it in October, and I want to feel better about myself reading a book, because otherwise I would have only read 3 books. But that is Air by Sabaa Tahir. This one is her newest book, and she just came out with it in earlier, I want to say October or maybe the end of September. And I actually went to her book signing in Seattle, and I got my book signed and personalized, which is really exciting. So I was really excited to pick this up, and I wanted to pick it up soon, because I knew if I put it like down and put it on my cart, it would have taken me years to read it. This one is kind of where my reading slump came in, because I started reading this and it took me more than 3 weeks to read this, which is very abnormal for me. Usually it takes me about like a week to read a book. But this one just took me so long, but it wasn't because I was enjoying it. Like I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving like, again, 4 to 4.5 star rating, and I like really enjoyed the characters and the story and the writing and everything. I wasn't in the reading mood, and I don't know what it was, but in the end, once I got kind of back into the reading mood, like I was flying through this book, but for some reason it took me a really long time to read this book, like almost a month. This one follows 3 characters, an orphan, an outcast, and a prince. The prince is the nephew of Helene, who is from the main Ember Quartet series. This one does take place like 20 years after the events, the final events of the Ember series. So if you want to read this book, I would definitely recommend reading the Ember series before this, because there are a few spoilers from that series in this book as well. But I promise you that series is also so good. Like I literally love Sabaa Tahir so much. The Ember series, fantastic, amazing, read that. But if you want to read this book, I would definitely recommend as well. So like I said, we have the Prince Quill, who is Helene's nephew. Then we have Aiz, who is kind of on a mission to save her people. And then we have Saoirse, who is a tracker, and she kind of is on her own mission for somebody. And it kind of follows their stories as they kind of converge together across times. And I really enjoyed this. The writing is fantastic. I love Sabaa Tahir's writing, and there was no difference with this book. I was kind of, for some reason, I was hesitant going into it just because it's been so long. I feel like since she has finished the Ember series and written that and been in that world, but I never should have doubted her, because she really came through with this one. I will say this one has more heavier romantic undertones than I would say the Ember series, but I feel like it really worked for the story. It was like kind of weaved in with the plot. It was a part of the plot, and it didn't feel like it was just there for like the sake of having romance. So I really enjoyed that. I think the cover is absolutely gorgeous. I thought it was also really emotional at times. The reason I docked a little bit on the rating is because I felt like the main, I guess, not plot twist, but the main like reveal, I guess, that happened at the end was not too hard to predict after we got like a few clues going into the story. But maybe that was totally like on purpose, and I feel like we were kind of pointed towards what's gonna happen, which I guess it's more because this is not really a mystery book, so I kind of get why that was happening. But I wish that it was a little bit more concealed a little bit, I guess, before it actually got revealed. And then I wish we got a little bit more depth to some of the characters, especially the prince. I feel like we didn't really get too deep into his character, as like his kind of background, where he came from, what it was like to grow up as the prince, I guess, of an empire. I just wish we kind of got a little bit more depth to him as a character. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. I liked the side characters as well. I liked how everything converged together. Honestly, I don't really have bad things to say about this book. Just like the little thing about the getting more depth. Even those aren't big things at all. So yeah, really a fantastic book, and I am eagerly awaiting the second book, because of course in Saba fashion, she ended the book in a terrible, torturous way for our characters. So we'll see how that ends up being in the second book, but I know that's gonna take a little bit to come out. But yeah, those are all the 4 books, I guess, that I read in the month of October. I just hope that we have better reading months to come. I hope November is a better reading month. I'm reading my first book of November, and I can kind of feel the reading slump is still there, so I hope the book gods like extract the reading slump from me and throw it away, because I do not want that energy going into the rest of the year. I want to read a bunch more books. I want to find a new 5-star, which I feel like I literally won't. There's only 2 months left of the year. And yeah, but let me know down below if you've read any of these books, as of course I would love to know. But that is it for this video. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.